Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is SportsIQ with Larry Smith.
Hard to believe already Thursday. SportsIQ, Larry Smith, producer Tony, editor Josh. Glad you're with us here. Hey, we've got our friend Mike Cagley from Illini Guys joining us in a few moments here. Talk a little NBA draft, a little first round action. Obviously, Keaton Waller going 5th overall. We've talked before. One of the real amazing stories in college sports overall, just considering where he came from a year ago and what he did here in this one season. And now the LA Clippers, by the way, announcing that his jersey will be the number 1 jersey. Number 23 is already taken. So we'll talk with Mike. And a bit later, we'll talk a little officiating. We've been talking during the NBA playoffs, and now again, the WNBA. We've still got, a lot of people complaining about it, and we think they've got a good argument. So we'll have that conversation as well. Producer Tony and I love that conversation. Speaking of the NBA draft, it concluded Thursday or on Wednesday with the second round. And, again, just wasn't real exciting. Let's just be honest. But a few picks did stand out. One of the more interesting selections might have been the Bulls taking Braden Smith at number 38, the Purdue point guard, 4-year starter, NCAA's all-time assist leader. And then they dealt him right back to his home state, to the Indiana Pacers. For Smith, it really couldn't be any better. He gets to see if he can cut it in the NBA with a team that plays close to his hometown Purdue campus. 4-year starter Bruce Thornton, first pick of the second round, as he gets a shot with the Rockets to make it in the NBA. Love his game all the way through and hope he makes it. A number of players who turned down good-sized NIL paydays in the college game finally heard their name called on Wednesday night. Isaiah Evans from Duke went number 33 to Minnesota. Malik Thomas from Arkansas next at 34, going to Cleveland. Henry Vassar, the UNC product, slid all the way to Atlanta at number 52. The Tar Heels center, as a result, left a bag full of NIL dollars on the table to try the NBA. Financially, that did not work out for him. Should have stayed in school. A few players did not hear their name called, and now they'll try the undrafted free agent route. They'll be looking to become the next Austin Reeves, who went undrafted a few years ago and just agreed to a $185 million deal with the Lakers. Oh, can't play defense, but boy, he can score, and he's getting paid, and I love it. Kylan Boswell, the Illinois point guard on their Final Four team, will give that route a try, as well as Milos Uzan from Houston, Nick Boyd of Wisconsin, and Trey Donaldson from Miami. Now, while freshman guards were hot, other guards were not. The league is seeing a shift back to a bigger man's game, and if teams were going to gamble and draft a player who may or may not pan out, they opted for height in that regard. Now, there was one deal that was announced on Wednesday, the Grizzlies and Pistons finally making a trade involving a player when Detroit sent backup center Isaiah Stewart to Memphis. The trade, ironically enough, involves the very same second-round picks that Detroit sent Memphis on Tuesday to move up from number 21 to number 17 in the first round. So the Grizzlies get Stewart to help rebuild there, while the Pistons clear some cap space and come away with the 2029 second-round pick. It's the most favorable of the Knicks, Pistons, and Bucks. Also a 2031 second-round pick by way of Dallas, 2032 second-round pick that came from the Pistons. We're just getting started here. More to come, including some talk about the WNBA and what's getting called and what's not getting called. We'll also hear from Fever coach Stephanie White with her thoughts on the officiating in last night's Fever game. Also, it was a night to remember for Dansby Swanson in the Big Apple. All of that is still on the way. Time now for today's moment of awe. We all know that regulation baseball games are 9 innings long, but we also know that sometimes they exceed regulation. 2 AAA minor league teams, Pawtucket and Rochester, began play on a Saturday night, April 18th, 1981, just before 8:30. Pawtucket scored a run in the bottom of the ninth to force extra innings, and nobody could have imagined how extra this would be. 15 innings, same score. 20 innings, same score. Both teams scored once in the 21st and kept on playing. Now, the International League had a 12:50 a.m. curfew, but the rulebook failed to mention that. 25 innings, 30 innings. Finally, they suspended the game after 32 innings at 4:07 Eastern morning. When they resumed the game on June 23rd, there was a sellout crowd of more than 5,700, 140 reporters from all around the world there to witness the completion of the longest game in baseball history, Pawtucket winning 3-2 in 33 innings. Truly a moment of awe.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Sports IQ, Larry Smith. Welcome back here to the show. As some of you know, I get a chance every week to do the fantastic Illini Guys Sports Spectacular on several stations around the Midwest. 25, 30 stations. I'm not sure. It's good stuff. But anyway, every time I get a chance to work with my friend Mike Cagley, co-host of the Illini Guys Sports Spectacular, and he joins us now. Mike, talking a little NBA draft, Keaton Wagler. Just the storybook year continues for this 19-year-old. Number 5 pick overall to the Clippers.
Yeah, that was exciting. You so many times in sports, you don't see the good guys finish first. And It was nice to see that with him because he's the type of kid who's just a joy for the media to cover. He's loved by his teammates, a positive guy. And when you get into games, I'm always impressed by the players who take a lot of abuse and sometimes even cheap shots from the opposing teams because they're good. And they don't let it fluster them at all. I was never capable of that, and I really admire those people who can do that, and Keaton Wagler is one of those guys.
He was somebody that I really felt it was the catalyst for the Illini going to the Final Four. Taking nothing away from the other players and the guys coming back and Brad Underwood, et cetera, but he just was one of those special type of players that we saw come out. The first time I saw him play live was back in December when Illinois was at Ohio State, and he had just a very steady 23 points. I think it was maybe the second game that he had taken over the point guard position from Kylan Boswell when Underwood, Coach Brad Underwood, had made that change. And thought, wow, what a nice game. This kid really, has matured very quickly. I see now why they were so high on him. I had no idea what was to come. I mean, his best games still were yet to come later on in the season.
Yeah, he's I think the culmination, everybody would be willing to say this, was what he did at Purdue. And I remember sitting there and watching the game with two of my sons, and we were saying, is this happening? Because nobody does that at Mackey. And he reached a level for one game that was really Jordan-esque. And then I think at that point, the whole nation knew who he was. And he went from, that guy to that All-American guy. And it was kind of a unique, I don't know, Larry, if you can think of any player in Illinois history that's had that type of journey. I mean, I know Darren was the second best player on his high school team, and everybody, went to see it. Who was it, Bracy Wright or whoever it was that was on his team. But man, it was really kind of a unique journey that has been fun to talk to people and watch over this last year.
Yeah, I can't think of anybody like this that went from a player nobody heard of. And again, we've talked about it for those who don't know his full story. His parents dropped him off on campus last June for summer workouts. And at the time, he was a redshirt candidate. Like, they weren't even sure he'd even get any playing time as a freshman. Fast forward 6 months, and he's got the game at Purdue, and all of a sudden, he's on All-American lists everywhere and Player of the Year list. And I think he won the Jerry West Award as the top shooting guard in the country. It just was unbelievable for a guy who was very lowly ranked to become an All-American in 1 year. I can't think of another freshman in my lifetime that's done that, come in with those few of honors and had that. That's certainly not in Illinois history. It just hasn't happened. I mean, a freshman as an All-American at Illinois, that has never happened before.
Yeah, and the thing is he's developed a game that is so good for the NBA, because right now the NBA is just a killer. You really have to be able to shoot. You have to be able to handle the ball, and you have to have good vision, and all these things allow you to spread the court for your team. And he can hit the jumper. He can drive the ball. He can pass the ball. He does all those things that you really need to be successful in the NBA: shoot, pass, and handle. And he does all three at a high level. And nobody knew his name. He was basically like going into the Cheers bar before when the year started. And you recall listening to Brad and Ked talk about reports out of practice that this kid is the best player on the team, and we're like, who?
Yeah, yeah. And everyone remember that he was only kind of quote unquote filling in because Mihajlo Petrovic had not cleared whatever hurdles he had to clear coming from overseas. And even remember early in the season, our friend Mike DeCourcy of the Sporting News did a piece on the Balkan connection with Brad Underwood. And he was on our show and we were talking about it. And afterwards in the commercial break, he was saying, yeah, when Petrovic comes back, they'll probably, sit this Wagler kid. And I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen. Like from what we're hearing, like there's something really about him we're not seeing yet, and they're really high on him. And then here he is, number 5 pick overall. By the way, the money is just insane. There's I think it was Sportico reporting that there's going to be a 7% increase in all revenue share. That's salary cap, that's rookie scale, everything else. So he's going to make more than $9 million in year one. $44 million over the first 4 years, but before he turns 24 years old. So it's pretty impressive. Illinois kind of becoming guard U. We also had Ayo Dosunmu this week, agreeing he's going to re-sign with Minnesota, 5 years, $112 million. He was a second-round pick as an All-American. But yet Kasper Giacochonis, draft pick by Miami, going to Milwaukee for year 2. Will Riley in Washington, Terrence Shannon entering year 3 in Minnesota. Has only become guard U, where you're going to have all these guards, these tall guards, trying to fit into Brad Underwood's system and then go on to the NBA?
You certainly can understand why a player who has aspirations to become an NBA star will look at Illinois, because they get to go and demonstrate to the NBA, this is what I can do. And Brad Underwood is not one to cramp their style. He gives them the freedom if they earn it by what they do in practice and on the court, but he gives them their freedom. And with, you went through a list, and those guys have been able to attract the NBA scouts. As you talked about, the NBA scouts practically lived in Champaign at the end of the season. So we knew that Wagler was going to go very, very high.
Mm-hmm.
And if I am a developing player, or more importantly, if I'm a parent who pays attention, or I'm a coach who's advising a player, I'm looking at Illinois for those positions in particular. And you also look in the paint with the Ivisic brothers. You also look at what Merck is doing. And you could even argue that if you're a big, it's not too bad a place to go. Illinois just has to let that talent cycle through. And Brad Underwood has done maybe what we all thought Bill Self might have done if he had the time, but Brad Underwood has elevated Illinois' talent to a level equal to historical bests. But the difference is he hasn't had the NCAA or moving to another job or whatever happens that has derailed that second generation to keep it at that high level. I'm very optimistic at what we're going to see this year, and I now have trust in the staff recruiting wise that I'm not worried about down the line, even though down the line isn't even a gleam in anybody's eye the way this game is going right now with the change factors.
Yeah, no question. Talk with Mike Cagley of the Illini Guys about Keaton Wagler, the number 5 pick of the NBA draft, going to the LA Clippers. Also, NBA draft overall. We'll get into that in a moment. Want to get your thoughts as well, talking about just in terms of change. Illinois keeping players, Andrei Stojakovic making the big announcement, withdrawing from the draft process. And all of a sudden, this is an Illinois team that's going to be in everybody's preseason top 5. You know where I stand on preseason rankings. They mean nothing. They're good for fans to brag about. It's more a testament of the respect for the coach and the program when you're ranked so high in the preseason. And it seems like that Illinois has reached that level, as you mentioned.
Yeah, they've reached that level, kind of like Nebraska football. They're just incredible in the preseason, and then you have no idea what's going to happen when things kick off. But that's just the way it's been recently. But no, Illinois basketball, Brad Underwood has that respect from the national media. You've talked about that since the long before we started Illini Guys. But now all of a sudden, when the media needs a story, there we are, and Brad Underwood and Illinois are a story. And that, to me, that's the that's the positive coming out, because they'll get the occasional write-up. And I'm talking about The Athletic. I'm not talking about ESPN, who, as you duly noted in our Illini Guys message boards, where people can talk to us and back and forth. It's more of it's not a passive, it's actually interactive experience. But you noted last night that, instead of ESPN talking about the national champions getting 3 picks in the first round, the Big Ten doing very well in the first round, Dusty May, the national championship coach, going to, Dallas, it was, hey, let's do an extra long feature on Wilson and Boozer, 2 very, very good players. But boy, the Big Ten is making a move there as well. And there's a lot going on, and Illinois is at the forefront of that basketball renaissance going on in the Big Ten.
Yeah, now it's one of those where with Dusty May leaving Michigan here in the very late in the process and going to the NBA's Dallas Mavericks, Michigan considered to be Illinois' top contender in the Big Ten. That may fall off just a bit. There's no question. So Keaton Wagler is gone. Illinois top 5, but how do they replace what Keaton Wagler gave them this upcoming season?
Well, I'll tell you what, Brad Underwood at the Final Four announced Quentin Coleman announced he was coming to Illinois, and Brad Underwood got to brag about it, got to at least give a thumbs up and react for people. And that commitment we saw with USA basketball, just how good he was, averaging a double-double at 6'3", 6'4". He is a guard who's probably got more quick twitch than Wagler had, isn't as tall as Wagler, but we're hearing the same type of reports, and that's the advantage of Illini Guys, Brad and Ked, pretty close to the program. We're hearing that Quentin Coleman may be the best player on the team, and that's a team with Mirkovic, who many think is going to be an All-American this year, and Ivasic, who's going to have a heck of a year, and Stojakovic, there's some really good talent, and Coleman is right there toe-to-toe with any of them. They may have found a way to replace Wagler. I'm not certain that you're going to copy him or duplicate him, but you may have a guy who can do a lot of the things and maybe do a couple things better than Keaton did, whereas Keaton might do a couple things better than him. But the dynamic nature of what we're hearing about him in practice is certainly encouraging.
Yeah, Mike, I got about 2 minutes left here. I want to kind of get into Brad Underwood. He's a coach that some of the fans weren't too high on in recent years, but this obviously breaks through. Final Four winning cures all ills, of course. What's changed with this program for Brad Underwood, and is this now a program you think can be among the nation's elite for the foreseeable future, the way that we're back in the 80s under Lou Henson and the Flying Illini in those years?
I think we're reaching an era that may be able to eclipse that 80s era, believe it or not. Underwood seems to be very comfortable in his own skin, and he knows what he wants to be now. I think there was some times early on, they were going to play that defense, 40 feet from the basket that generated 40 fouls and a lot of fast breaks for the other team. As he's evolved, I think he knows what he wants, and he told us what he was going to do. He wanted positionless basketball. He wanted elite length at every position, and he wanted elite shooting ability. And he is evolving that team to his vision. And he has, because of a very good GM who's getting the players there and a very good NIL program, he's got the ability to compete for some of the best players. And then real quick, he does one thing that people don't really give him enough credit for. But back when Yakachonis was struggling, he stayed with him. And he showed freshman recruits that if you go through a little bumpy patch, I'm not going to push you aside. I'm not going to just bring in an older guy. I'm going to stick with you. You're going to play through it. You're going to be a first-round draft choice. And oh, by the way, 2 out of the last 3 years, they've went to an Elite Eight or a Final Four. And the coupling of the postseason success with that ability to get guys in the NBA and back your players, this is a place that players want to play.
Yeah. Well, I remember doing some research. I think they're one of only 10 teams since COVID that's had multiple years of players in the first round, gone to multiple Sweet 16s and a Final Four. And that's, Kentucky is not on that list. That just shows you in terms of what he has done with that program. Mike, always good to talk with you. We'll catch up with you this weekend on the Sports Spectacular.
Thank you. Look forward to it. All
right. Appreciate it. Mike Cagley, once again, co-host Illini Guys Sports Spectacular from IlliniGuys.com as well, giving us his insights on this Illinois program right now. Again, maybe with Dusty May leaving, they may have already been the team to beat and may be elevated now with the Michigan going through a bit of change up there in Ann Arbor. All right, stay with us. We've got much more to come here in the Sports IQ.
I get a lot of calls from people across the country who are suffering from the affliction of IRS tax debt, and that's because I have a remedy. Hi, I'm the tax doctor, and if you're having any of these tax issues, call me right now. My team specializes in helping people over the age of 50 solve their tax problems, and the bigger your tax problem is, the more money you can save. If you owe the IRS money, or you're about to owe the IRS money, or even if you need to file years of unfiled returns, call us right now. Our friendly, highly trained representatives are waiting right now to take your call. Over the years, we've helped thousands of people just like you stop the tax liens, wage garnishments, and harassing phone calls. You don't need to send the IRS a big fat check. We can negotiate a lower amount. That's what we guarantee for you. So call us right now. Call 833-789-3068.
Do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call. Because the best prices on airline tickets are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. They have access to great prices and discounts with over 500 different airlines, plus 300,000 hotels and rental car companies. Their prices are too low to publish online. The only way to learn more is make a free call. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next trip. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find the best prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next trip.
Welcome back here to the show. Hey, I want to give a quick thank you for everyone who goes to our YouTube page. In exactly 1 year, we hit 300,000 views. Man, you guys have made this. Tell you what, just patting the heart here. It's much love, little heart sign with the hands. No, we appreciate it. We're having a lot of fun, as we've talked about. Me, Tony, and Josh. Just it's a daily love coming together. We're all buds, and to do this and to know you guys appreciate it, we really are so grateful for that. So again, Sports IQ LS on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. We're almost getting to 300 subscribers. Man, that number's really gone up too very quickly. So, but 300,000 views already in exactly 1 year. We really appreciate that, and let's keep it going. If you what's there, by the way, you have the archives of all of our shows, the moments of all, video of all those, and get to see my smiling face on that. So there you go. Get to some other headlines. Cubs Hall of Famer Ernie Banks, known for his saying back in the day, let's play two. Well, yesterday in New York City, the Cubs and Mets, well, they did just that. It's a day-night doubleheader. And boy, I tell you what, Dansby Swanson wishes there could be more days like Wednesday. In fact, if he can do this on a regular basis, he might start saying, let's play three. The Cubs taking both games of the doubleheader by scores of 10-3 in the day, 10-5 at night. In game one, Swanson hit the tie-breaking 3-run homer in the 6th, adding a grand slam in the 8th as he finished 2 for 4, the 2 homers, 7 runs batted in. In the nightcap, Swanson had a go-ahead RBI triple, 4 runs batted in all to cap a monster doubleheader performance and help the Chicago Cubs sweep the reeling New York Mets. Those 11 RBIs in a doubleheader, that's a franchise record that breaks the mark of 10 set by Hall of Famer Ron Santo back in July of 1970. Swanson also homered in Tuesday night's game and now has 3 homers and 15 RBIs in the first 3 games of the series. The shortstop had just 14 RBIs in his previous 48 games entering Tuesday. So, man, he may want to just find a home there at Citi Field. Pretty good stuff there. Cubs and Mets, by the way, also worked out a trade while the Twin Bill was playing out. The Cubs, desperate to bolster a starting rotation just ravaged by injuries, agreed to acquire struggling Mets left-hander David Peterson in exchange for minor league infielder Cole Mathis on Wednesday night. This according to ESPN's Jeff Passan. Right-handers Edward Cabrera has a hamstring. Ben Brown has a neck injury. They became the latest Cubs starters to go on the injured list on Wednesday, joining Justin Steele with an elbow, Cade Horton with an elbow, Jameson Taillon with a hamstring, Matthew Boyd with a knee. Yes, all these at the same time. On the Cubs' projected starters to open the season, only one is on the active roster, Shota Imanaga, the left-hander. Though Boyd is slated to return from the IL to start Thursday's series finale against the Mets. So what are the Cubs getting in Peterson? Well, if you think it might be a savior who might go on a run and win 12 to 14 games the rest of the season, think again. Right now, Peterson is just a warm body. Last season, he made the All-Star game and actually pitched a solid inning in relief in the game, but since then has been, well, a disaster. Let's just put it that way. Peterson is a ground ball specialist, owned a 2.83 ERA on August 6th through 21 starts. Since then, he has a 6.98 earned run average in 17 starts and 8 relief appearances. So Cubs, good luck. The bats better stay hot when he is on the mound. You know that a lot of Yankee fans were pretty worried when Aaron Judge went down with that injury last month. Who would lead the offense is what they wondered. Well, Paul Goldschmidt has said, hold my beer. I got this. Last night, Goldschmidt with 2 home runs. Also, Jason Dominguez hitting a go-ahead 2-run shot in the 6th. This off Tariq Skubal, lifting the Yankees to the 4-2 series winning victory over the Tigers. The 2 homers giving Goldschmidt 13 on the season. That's 3 more than he hit in all of last year. Since June 13th, Goldschmidt has been on a heater, hitting .333 with 6 homers and 10 runs batted in. It has been just impressive. Okay, quick timeout right now. More to come. We'll look at the night in the W and discuss if that league has an officiating issue. Remember, in the offseason, they were going to work on it. We'll talk about how that's going. It's next on the Sports IQ with Larry Smith. Welcome back here to the show. Sports IQ, Larry Smith, having a great time here on a Thursday. You know why? Because we're not professional basketball referees. That's why. Let's talk about the W first last night on the court. The Fever looking to make it a home sweep of the Phoenix Mercury. If you recall, on Monday, the two teams got together. A total of 5 technicals were handed out during that game, which was an 86-77 Fever win. Well, last night, some folks in the stands, we're not sure if they were watching basketball or a WWE pay-per-view event. Kalia Copper led the way with 28 points for Phoenix, 15 of 16 from the charity stripe. Mercury took the game 111-109. Caitlin Clark left the game in the third quarter after getting what head coach Stephanie White called 2 cheap shots along the way from the Mercury. With 6:52 in the second period, Clark drove into the lane, stumbled onto her side after some contact with defender Lexi Held. DeWanna Bonner and Alyssa Thomas collapsed on Clark in pursuit of the ball. Amid the scramble, Thomas appeared to push her fist into Clark's neck and then got up, stepped over the top of Clark. Seconds later, 6:25 left in the clock, Phoenix defender Valeriane Ayayi closed out Clark's 3-point attempt, Clark landing on her foot. A foul was called and the play was reviewed, but it was not upgraded as a reckless closeout. You know, that's the thing now. You have to be able to give the shooter room to come down, right? So Clark made all 3 free throws. Well, during the contest, the Fever whistled for 29 fouls. The Mercury called for only 19. Phoenix, 26 of 33 at the line. The Fever attempting only 19 free throws. So, look, after the game, as you can imagine, Indiana coach Stephanie White vented some of her frustrations with the officials. Here she is.
I just saw it. I'm not sure if it had any impact on her health or not. But it was egregious. The fact that it was a no call. I heard about it at halftime. I brought it to the attention of the officials at halftime. Yet we still had 11 fouls in the fourth quarter to their 2. They still shot 24 free throws in the second half. I just, number one, you got to call it. It's absolutely egregious and utterly disrespectful. And then number 2, you're coming in here aware of what happened 2 nights ago, and that shit still happens. Absolutely unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. And the reckless closeout that they actually reviewed, and the foot still comes down on top of the defender's foot that wasn't upgraded. Absolutely disrespectful. We have a generational talent and a WNBA superstar who had 2 cheap shots right there that weren't called. And I just say again, absolutely unacceptable.
All right, Stephanie White, clearly she's upset. Producer Tony joining us now. Tony, we've talked about this, and it's one of these things that it's so unfortunate. They've got to clean this up. Basketball is a beautiful game. We've said it before. People listen to the show all the time. They know this. And the thing is, too, the WNBA, this was a point of emphasis during the offseason of cleaning up the refereeing. I felt like the first week or so, it started off a little better, but we've kind of reverted back to in the past and what they were doing before.
Yeah, I mean, it's you don't want to just blame officials. Look, as a high school official myself, I don't want to get blamed for everything that goes on, right? But if it's a point of emphasis and it's what you talked about in all your meetings in the offseason leading up to this, then something needs to be done. Yes, they called, 48 fouls yesterday in that contest. 29 on one, 19 on the other. If you have to call 60 fouls, call 60 fouls. If that's the only way for folks to get things cleaned up, and it seems like the officials are more than willing to call fouls, and I've been watching this for a couple of weeks, watching WNBA games at night here at home, and you'll see people get up 3-4 fouls in the first half, and then all of a sudden they don't get called for anything. Now, look, if you're playing the game and you've committed 4 fouls in the first, 14, 15 minutes, and you don't commit another foul the rest of the way, do you really think that you didn't have hands where they shouldn't be, that you weren't bodying where they unless you sat on the bench that entire time?
Right.
Then how do you finish with the same 4 fouls you started with? And that goes for any player. And I've seen it a few times with different players from different teams, from everywhere from the Liberty to the Storm to the Sky to the Dream to the Fever. They've all had players do it. So, I mean, if you've gone to camp and done all the studying and you've boned up on everything and you're supposed to be taking a closer look at this, keep doing it. Don't get complacent. And it may be because they're playing more games and some of these officials aren't used to the wear and tear because they're not all NBA officials. They're officials who are trying to get to the NBA, and the WNBA is that stepping stone. So they're kind of a level below.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I don't understand as well is, in my opinion, and I think you agree as well, the NBA has a problem with this at the same time. The Thunder Spurs series, there were a lot of calls that we felt that should have been made. And then in the NBA Finals, Spurs Knicks, there were calls like, wow. I mean, it's, there's a lot of contact in the pro game. And in the WNBA, I've mentioned the last 2 years doing the studio show with Ion that, there are plays I would watch and say, okay, that's going to be an and one. Oh, it's not. Okay, it's a play on. It's kind of shocking. And it's disappointing because, like you said, at some point you have to clean it up and have to be consistent with it. I just think that, like you said, it's unfortunate because, look, it can't be a thing where it's just a touch foul, but that's the thing. You'll have some plays where, there are people going to the ground and they're just killing each other and there's nothing called. But then you have a touch foul on the other end, and all of a sudden, they might have grazed their elbow, maybe, or they didn't, and that is a foul. And that's my other issue is you got to be consistent.
Exactly. And that is the one thing officials can control. You need to be consistent with what you're calling. If this isn't a foul in the first quarter, it's sure, and we've talked about this before, I've mentioned this a number of times on the show. If it's not a foul in the first quarter, it sure better not be a foul in the fourth quarter. Because that is one way to get coaches all riled up. It's one way to get fans all riled up. You let it go. Now you want to, no. the horse left the barn. You can't close the gate now. Too late. Missed your chance. Should have done that in the first half when you had the chance. And I get it. You don't want to call every little ticky-tack foul. But Larry, how many times when we were texting back and forth during the NBA playoffs did we see guys grab a whole fistful of a guy's jersey to either keep him from moving on an inbounds play or keep him from making a cut? Or that should be automatic. That is cannot be anywhere in the rules. You cannot grab somebody's jersey to impede their progress. If you start calling that, look, that should be your point of emphasis in the NBA. If we see you grab a hunk of jersey, that's a personal foul. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
We're not going to allow this to continue.
Yeah. And here's my question. How is that even debatable?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're impeding their progress toward the ball or toward where they want to go. That's not defense. So that's what's amazing to me is that it should be automatic. And to your point, if you start calling it, guess what? It goes away.
Right. If you've got somebody that fouls out in the first half of an NBA game or a WNBA game because they grabbed the jersey 6 times of a player that they just aren't capable of guarding, but it's their assignment, that player's going to think twice about it the next game. Or at some point, management is going to go, this person, male, female, whatever, cannot play defense in this league. For whatever he brings to the table as a scorer, it's not worth it because I can't keep him out there on the floor to score because he fouls out all the time.
Yeah.
You want to get people to clean it up? That's how you clean it up.
Yeah. And I'm amazed. I think I've mentioned in the college game, there was one coach who I have heard talk about that in practice, in basketball practice for this team. And he will say, look, keep grabbing and clutching, keep doing it because they can't call them all. And they're not going to call them all. I mean, there are coaches who actually teach that they're not going to call all of them. So they feel like, look, I mean, if you grab them 8 times and get called for 1 foul, that's a good thing. Right. 7 times you succeeded in stopping them what they want to do. Another, I think I mentioned before, there was a dominant, player that couldn't be stopped. And the opposing guys would hack him every time. And the fouls weren't being called. And the coach complained and the officials actually said, we can't call it every time. Yes, you can.
Yes, you can. That's your job.
Yeah, that's the point. So because a different guy hacks him, you're just gonna let it all go like that. You can't do that, and that's unfortunate because now I know in the NBA they're professional referees. Like that. If you're a referee, that's your job.
Yep,
and you're very well paid for it. I don't know if the WNBA is there yet, but they really need to take a look at that model as well.
Absolutely, because you can't endanger people like Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, Asia Wilson, the other superstars in this league. Because guess why fans are in the stands? They want to see Asia Wilson play basketball. They do not want to see Asia Wilson in a cast on the sideline. They want to see Caitlin Clark. They want to see Angel Reese. They want to see these other excellent players, Olivia Miles, Paige Beckers. They want to see all these players playing basketball. That's why they're there. They're not there to watch professional wrestling. They're not there, to see all the clutching and grabbing that goes on. They're there to watch basketball. And I remember coaches when I was, in grade school and middle school playing basketball saying, we play defense with our feet. Basketball defense is played with the feet. Well, it doesn't sure seem to be that way anymore in either one of these leagues because the hands and the arms sure come into play an awful lot of the time when these folks are trying to play defense.
Exactly. And the consistency needs to be there. I mentioned before last year when Caitlin Clark was trying not to be called for too many technicals, right? And she ended up, there was a game against Connecticut. That's the game where Sophie Cunningham took down JC Shelton and her name went viral. Now everyone knows who Sophie Cunningham is if you didn't know before because of that play. Well, that was earlier in the game, there was an exchange with Marina Mabry and Caitlin Clark. This is Indiana versus Connecticut. There's a double technical. Well, later in the game, Caitlin Clark hits a 3-pointer about the 3-minute mark in the fourth quarter. Indiana's up big, maybe 20 points, and Caitlin turns to something to the Connecticut bench. Well, in my experience, that's a technical foul. Like if you stop and you're demonstrative at the bench and say something, it's a technical. Nothing was called. Stephanie White got her out of the game. But again, the consistency. If you call that technical there, don't pick and choose when you're going to call technicals or flagrant fouls or whatever the case is. Be consistent. If your superstar player gets a second technical foul for shouting at the opposing bench, get her out of the game. And at the same time, don't say like, well, you're the star player. We've given you, we've given you grace in terms of, not calling this. We're not going to call this play against you to even things out. Let's not do that either.
Yeah, and like you said, that's where the consistency factor comes in. Have superstars or those who are the great players earn maybe a little more leeway? Yeah, probably, but not that much leeway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Especially, and the easiest thing to get out of hand, and we'll see we nearly saw a fight break out in that Fever Mercury game on Monday. Because the officials didn't clamp down on things soon enough. If you clamp down on it early, that will lower temperatures. If you don't, it's like setting up the dial on the stove. 6, it's hot.
Right.
7, it's hotter. 8, we're boiling over. You got to tamp it down a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Absolutely. Well, here's to hope that they figure things out because it's a beautiful game. They're enjoying unprecedented success, getting paid more money than they ever gotten before. 30th anniversary, fun to watch over the weekend. By the way, the big shot, Nneka Ogwumike, the huge 3-point shot as LA beat New York in the anniversary game. It was an anniversary 29 years ago. The first ever WNBA game played between those two franchises, had the old throwback uniforms. I mean, it was just a great game. LA with a comeback. Those should be the moments we're talking about, like Ogwumike and what she did with that in the big 17-point comeback. Not this stuff. Let's clean the game up. I agree with you. Okay, quick timeout. More conversation to come here on the Sports IQ.
Are you tired of your website making your business look bad? Is your current web developer dropping the ball? Let's face it, if your website isn't making you money, it's broken. Let Neon Rain create a website that turns your visitors into customers. Neon Rain has worked with hundreds of businesses across North America, building custom websites and applications with modern designs that are easy to update and work well on mobile devices. They can do it for you too. What sets Neon Rain apart? They actually deliver on their promises. Call today for a free consultation. 303-957-3092. That's Neon Rain at 303-957-3092. Or visit them at neonrain.com.
Another great story, by the way, that we came across earlier this morning. Al Horford staying in the NBA. He is ESPN reporting he's going to decline his 6-year player option for next year and sign a 2-year, $14 million contract that'll be fully guaranteed. So he will become the 13th player in NBA history to reach a 20th season. And Tony, I know you and I have talked about this. I love Al Horford's game. He was a player who was not a can't-miss player coming out of high school, out of Michigan, goes down to Florida, helps lead Billy Donovan's Gators to back-to-back national championships, and then now a 20-year career in the NBA. Just somebody who just goes out and does it. There's never drama. There's never any stuff around him. He just goes and plays at a high level. And I think any team that can have an Al Horford on your team is a good thing.
Oh, absolutely. Those are the kind of guys you need. Those are your glue guys that keep everything together, that go out and do the dirty work. Yeah, they'll hit their 3. Yeah, they'll score their points, but they'll also rebound. They'll dive on the floor. I kind of like an Al Horford back, and I know I keep dating myself with these references, but he kind of reminds me of a Paul Silas from the late 60s, early 70s. A guy who doesn't get noticed much, not going to make a ton of all-star teams, might make 1 or 2 here or there, but a guy that you loved having on your team because he would play the defense, because he would take the shot if it had to be taken. He would do the rebounding. He'd dive on the floor. He'd protect his other teammates if somebody was trying to get a little too physical, a little too handsy with him. The league needs players like that. Not everybody can be LeBron James or Steph Curry or Victor Wembanyama. You need some of the other guys that are your lunch pail guys. Call him what he is. He's a lunch pail guy. And you need that. And that's a good moniker to have.
Yeah. I think it's awesome. He finally got his ring with Boston a few years ago. So he got that elusive championship ring. And now he's with one of the classiest organizations in the NBA, perhaps to finish out his career this next 2 years. So Al Horford staying with Golden State. Trade earlier on Thursday as well. The Charlotte Hornets finally getting shipping LaMelo Ball and Josh Green out. They are headed to Minnesota for Naz Reid and a series of draft picks. This again, according to ESPN. So there's been some talk about Ball moving on. You wonder now, how will he fit in with that backcourt there in Minnesota with Ant Edwards? We've already reported they're going to re-sign Ayo Dosunmu. Now Ball, Dante DiVincenzo will be out for most of the year with that torn ACL or torn Achilles. You wonder now how he's going to fit in there with Minnesota.
Yeah, he's always been, look, the whole Ball family is kind of an interesting study in different things. And, that's the nicest way I can put it. I don't know his personality. I've never met LaMelo Ball. I read the stats. He can obviously play the game. How he fits in with Ant, that'll be an interesting dynamic to see. What it does tell me is if I'm Terrence Shannon, I got to get out of there. I'm never going to get a chance on this team now that you've brought him in. If you've re-signed DeSomo, you've still got Ant. Yeah, DiVincenzo is going to be out all year, but now you've brought in LaMelo Ball. I'm maybe the fourth guard, maybe the fifth off the bench. If I'm ever going to work my way in, I need to go somewhere. I need to get my agent to go in and look, just trade me or release me. I'll find something. I'll catch on with somebody because it ain't working here. Yeah.
Boy, and you're right, Shannon, and again, obviously I have allegiance to him. I think he's a great player, but I just think he's terrific. He comes in the game and just provides instant offense at every turn. And I don't get what Chris Finch doesn't see in him. This year's playoffs, with all the injuries they had, he stepped right up and had some major games. When he's in the open court, he can't be stopped. He's too big and fast, and it happens all the time. So I don't know, but I'm with you. He's got to get out entering his third year in the NBA. Hey, I want to talk about the draft now finishing. Second round is there, and you were pointing out there's a theme to this 2026 draft.
Yeah, there are an awful lot of big men taken. You're seeing the game, and I don't know if it's a result of where the college game is headed, and the NBA is playing off of that, or the NBA is seeing that, okay, there's this guy in San Antonio who's 7'4", 7'5". The game is being played at a bigger level. We need to get bigger. If we're going to deal with this guy throughout his career, we need to deal with it bigly. And you saw what OKC did by bringing in Ada Mera. Okay, they're going big. Whether they keep Chet, whether they move on from him, or they move on from Hartenstein, they've at least got a couple bigs to keep throwing at that body, and they're going to need to keep doing it. I think the league as a whole you kind of see that shift. These shifts don't happen all at once. It takes a little bit. It takes a couple years, but you can kind of see that shift to wanting guys who are bigger, wanting big front lines again, big front courts, not so much 3-guard, 4-guard play with one guy trying to rebound the ball every time. I think teams are starting to realize that, look, the game is still best played around the paint. And we're going to take our threes when they're open and we're going to hit a bunch of them, but we need to be able to get inside the paint because, one, it helps draw us fouls, and there are a little easier shots to make from in there, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, the big lineup, look at what Dusty May did with Michigan. Look at what he's already setting up to do now with Dallas. With you bring in Morez Johnson Jr., he becomes your 4. In the long-term picture, and Cooper Flagg then at 6'9" becomes your 3, and Flagg has those kinds of skills. So to your point, this is exactly what they're going to do. Yeah, but you're right. It's interesting to see how the game has evolved right now. And is there a room for the 5'10" point guard? Maybe not so much. All right, we got to run. Appreciate Mike Cagley stopping by from Illini Guys to talk about Keaton Wagler. Speaking of tall, 6'6" guard going to the Clippers, and all the draft talk. We appreciate you stopping by as well. Make this a great Thursday, and we will be here again tomorrow on Friday on the SportsIQ.
Thanks for listening to SportsIQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at SportsIQ LS. We'll see you next time.